AP, Beijing. In a sudden reversal, China has announced a number of steps that reduce punitive lockdowns and order schools without known infections to resume regular lessons, taking down some of its most severe anti-COVID-19 regulations. In a 10-point statement released on Wednesday, the National Health Commission specified that, with the exception of vulnerable locations like nurseries, senior care institutions, and schools, COVID-19 testing and a clean bill of health displayed on a smartphone app would no longer be required. Additionally, it restricted the scope of the lockdown to specific apartment buildings and floors as opposed to entire districts and neighborhoods. The announcement comes in the wake of recent major demonstrations in a number of cities against the stringent zero-COVID policy, which is already in its fourth year and has been accused of upsetting daily life, interfering with travel and employment, and severely harming the country's economy. China has attempted to maintain the strict stance while keeping the second-largest economy in the world humming. However, public discontent with the restrictions seems to have finally changed the minds of officials who had previously defended zero-COVID as being superior to the strategy adopted by other countries that have opened up in an effort to learn to live with the virus. The statement said that officials must oppose and overcome formalism and bureaucracy, and take strict and detailed measures to protect people's life safety and health to the greatest extent, and minimize the impact of the epidemic on economic and social development. Officials, often those at the local level under intense pressure to prevent outbreaks, are required to do this. Just 20,764 new COVID-19 cases were reported in China on Wednesday, down from a daily average of almost 40,000 in previous days. The vast majority of these cases are asymptomatic. Lockdowns are limited to a maximum of 5 days under the new regulations, cold medicine sales are no longer subject to restrictions, and elderly vaccination programs are being stepped up. Calls for leader Xi Jinping to resign were made during the most recent protests. After at least 10 individuals lost their lives in an apartment building fire in Urumqi, China, on November 25, protests started. Authorities refuted claims that closed doors or other antivirus measures prevented firefighters or victims from getting to the scene. However, the catastrophe came to represent the public's displeasure. The National Health Commission did not mention the fire, the demonstrations, or any official end to zero-COVID, which has been closely associated with Xi's authority, in its notice. The policy has hindered manufacturing and international trade while keeping the majority of visitors out of China. Restrictions have been gradually being lifted by officials for days. Industrial hubs, such as Guangzhou, which is close to Hong Kong, have relaxed most restrictions on mobility and reopened marketplaces and enterprises while maintaining them in areas with infectious diseases. Millions of adults in their 70s and 80s will receive vaccinations as part of the government's last week's announcement that zero-COVID limitations will be lifted. Before vaccination rates are high enough and hospitals are ready to handle a potential outbreak of infections, health experts and economists warn that it will be around the middle of 2023 and possibly 2024.